Americans are courageous. They are able to act with courage and determination in everything they do. Courage is the strength to withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Americans have had many difficulties in the past, whether it was the start of a new government, wars, or recently, terrorist attacks. Americans have the ability to withstand anything thrown their way, and they are able to do so courageously. We have worked hard in order to accomplish everything we do, and we have earned the right to act with courage. Through our history and literature, we are able to see acts of courage every American is capable of accomplishing. One particularly courageous historical figure is George Washington. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, to a middle-class family in Virginia. When he was younger, he studied writing. During Washington's life, he had to display courage numerous times. An important military leader, he started his career young. His first act of courage was when he had to stop the French from moving into Britain's claimed land. Still young, he voyaged to Fort Le-Boeuf, wishing to deliver a message. On his travels, he had to pass French-occupied forts filled with hostile Indians in French. Then, in the harsh and cold weather, he had to wait for a reply and then return with word of the French's decisions. Another courageous thing he had to do occurred during the French and Indian War. Washington participated in the first battle of the war. When the French occupied his British fort, Washington had to find an alternative place to stay. He created and constructed a fort named Fort Necessity. Him and his men stayed here. He was able to act efficiently in a difficult situation. Then, in 1755, he had a very courageous act. During the Battle of Fort Duquesne, 2 horses were shot out from under him. In an act of pure instinct and fear, he quickly took over his fatally wounded commander's horse and took charge. His ability to act quickly in a dangerous situation is what gave him courage. One of his most well-known acts of courage happened at the Battle of Trenton. It was the day after Christmas, and Commander-in-Chief George Washington led his troops to a surprise attack against the Hessians. There was a blizzard, and his soldiers were tired. They had to cross the Delaware in freezing temperatures. This was perhaps one of his most courageous acts in his life. Along with this, George Washington was the first president of the United States, one of the most difficult things to do. He had to run a new country with no one to guide him from the previous years. He was courageous in this act and helped to start the country on the path to becoming what it is today. Like George Washington, Frederick Douglass also showed a considerable amount of courage during his life. Frederick Douglass was born a slave in Maryland in 1818. The exact date is unknown. One of the most courageous and admirable things Douglass did was escape from slavery. Educated secretly by first a master's wife and then kids in the alley, he decided that slavery was not the way he wanted to spend his life. His escape was planned thoroughly, and in 1838 he made it. Douglass had to borrow his friend's free papers, which were required by all free African Americans in the United States. Because his friend was a sailor, he could use his free sea papers in place of these free papers. When Douglass went towards the train, he feared for his life. The decision of the conductor would determine whether he would be able to board the train or be sent to Baltimore and back into slavery. His escape was successful. Frederick Douglass's courage was one to be admired. Not only was he able to handle the fear of being caught in his dangerous escape, but also to overcome the danger associated with it. Frederick Douglass wrote an autobiography about his life and his escape, but at first did not include his actual escape route so as to help protect the people that had helped him. However, he later updated the work, including his true path to freedom. Another great character we learned about this year was Atticus Finch. Like Douglass, Finch displays great courage through his actions and integrity throughout the book. Atticus Finch is a fictional character created by author Harper Lee. He is a lawyer during the Great Depression, a time when racism is still thriving in the South. One of the novel's main events is the trial of Tom Robinson, an African-American man accused of raping a white woman. Appointed to defend him is Atticus Finch. Atticus Finch is appointed to this trial because of his actions and previous works in the court. The judge decided that Atticus was the only man to give Tom Robinson a fair trial, instead of the open and shut case that was expected. Atticus says, quote, "I wanted you to see what real courage is, instead of getting the idea that courage is a man with a gun in his hand. It's when you know you're licked before you begin, but you begin anyway and you see it through no matter what." End quote. Lee, page 116. Even though the case may have been predetermined in the Macomb County Court, Atticus gives Tom a fair trial, a very courageous thing to do. He will not go halfway with his defense of Tom, but will try his hardest even though he knows there is a small chance of him winning the case. Most of the people in Maycomb do not want Tom Robinson to even be given a trial, and they certainly do not want his appointed lawyer to defend him. Atticus had to work through the hatred of almost an entire town to do what he knew was right. Defending Tom was certainly difficult, and Atticus had to overcome these difficulties. The night before the trial, Atticus decides to stand watch outside of Tom's jail cell. While he is sitting there, in the dark, a group of men from Maycomb, some of whom are Atticus's friends, threaten him and Tom as they are trying to hurt the accused. In an act of courage, Atticus defends Tom and what he is doing, saying that he is only doing what is right and just in the eyes of his court and country. Atticus is one of the most courageous characters I have ever come across. Not only does he have to overcome the difficulty of giving a hated man a fair trial, but he also has to work in fear for himself and fear for his children because of what he believes is right. Another courageous character we learn about is Antonia. She is the main character of My Antonia by Willa Cather. Along with the others, she is able to show courage through extremely difficult times. Antonia is a Bohemian settler that moved to the American prairie with her parents, sister, and 2 brothers. Her life on the prairie is very difficult and takes a while to adapt to. She must learn a new language, culture, and people than before. Not only does Antonia have to do all of this, but she must also work in a climate she is not familiar with, and work in the fields with the men in order to keep her family alive. Antonia is a strong character. She is independent and fun-loving, but none of this came without struggle. Antonia had to overcome her father's death, something that was very difficult for her. Her courage and ability to move on is not something that should be overlooked. Antonia was not necessarily in danger, but she did experience great difficulty. She was not lazy, and her hard work led her to a prosperous and rich adult life. This prosperity was not in money or luxuries, but rather in family and the big ability to have the memories that she has. Antonia's courage does not come by fighting in a bloody battle, committing a dangerous act in attempt for freedom, or even standing against others in the fight for what is right. Antonia's courage comes from doing what she always does, working and thriving in difficult situations when so many others before her have failed. The courage shown by these people is truly what it means to be an American. All Americans are proud of their history and culture, as we are a courageous country. With this courage, we can accomplish anything.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again, with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. Oh, justice will be served and the battle will rage. This big dog will fight when you rattle his cage. You'll be sorry that you messed with the US of A.